The story of pensions in Rhode Island is a real tragedy. Here you have Rhode Islanders who have spent their entire professional lives serving the rest of us, teaching our kids, keeping our streets safe, running into burning buildings when others are running out. And these folks who have spent their lives serving the community, they deserve a secure retirement. Unfortunately, our pension system was mismanaged by politicians at the State House for decades. And by the time 2011 rolled around, we had one of the worst funded pension systems of any state in the country. And it was a real tragedy. We had to do a reform to save the system. It was going to have to be a big reform. That being said, I do think that we should try to get back to the table to negotiate a settlement that will end these lawsuits that are hanging over our heads right now. As a state, we were very close to having a deal earlier this year, a deal that would have saved about 95% of the savings in the original pension reform and met some of the concerns of the employees and retirees and ended these lawsuits. I'd like to get back to the table to finalize a similar deal so that we can move on and focus on new policies and new ideas that will bring our state's economy back. The final thing I'll say is this. We need to make sure that from here on out, that pension system is managed well so that we never have to go through another reform again. I want to make sure that from here on out we get a good return on our investment, the state doesn't miss or delay any more of its payments. I want to make sure that from here on out that system is managed with integrity and responsibility so that we can move away from the old ways of the past that got us into this mess to begin with. Well, my background is as a financial professional, an investment professional, and I look forward to bringing my skill set to the Treasurer's office so that I can work with our cities and towns to give them advice and technical support on how to deal with tough financial issues like this one. When it comes to healthcare, we're at a very unusual time right now. There's a new health reform that has just come into place, a new health exchange, and so we need to spend a little bit of time recalibrating and figuring out exactly what the size of these healthcare liabilities are, because it's very hard to know what the new growth rate of healthcare costs is going to be in the coming decades. I think in the next year or two, we'll have a better sense of that. We'll have a sense of how big the problem is, and then we can get to work solving it. But I do believe that the Treasurer's office has a role to play here in giving advice and technical assistance to our cities and towns and state agencies. Prior to running for treasurer, I worked as an investment professional. I was a vice president at a billion-dollar investment firm called Trillium Asset Management, where we had strong returns. We delivered strong results for our clients, including a number of retirement funds. I personally oversaw about $100 million of investment positions at the firm. So I'll go into the treasurer's office with a very good sense of what it takes to produce strong investment performance. When I look at the state's investments today, I think we can do better in a few areas. I think we can be more transparent in how the state's money is invested in the pension system and elsewhere. I also think that we can do a better job reducing the fees that we pay to fund managers. Every dollar that we spend in a high fee is money that's coming out of our state's pension fund and other investments and going to Wall Street instead of staying here in Rhode Island. So those are going to be areas that I focus on. Reducing fees, improving transparency, and bringing my investment experience to the office to make sure that we get the best possible returns in our state's investments for the lowest level of risk. Well, the cost of college is absolutely out of control. This is a national emergency. Far too many of our young people aren't able to go to college or higher education at all because they're concerned about the cost of tuition, and many others are graduating with backbreaking levels of student loan debt. There's a few things that we should do. Number one, the Treasurer's Office manages something called the College Bound Fund. This is a way to help parents put aside some funds in a tax exempt way to help save for their kids' college. The problem is that the college-bound fund has had very poor investment performance compared to similar plans in other states. So this is where my experience as an investment professional will be useful. I can get into the treasurer's office, improve the investment returns of the college-bound fund so that when all of these parents in Rhode Island are setting aside money to save to send their kids to school one day, they will know that they'll get the best possible return on those savings. We also have to recalibrate our budget priorities as a state. Rhode Island today is near the bottom of the country in per capita spending on higher education. As a matter of fact, we've cut millions of dollars of state aid to URI, RIC, and CCRI through the years. And this has been a disaster because not only does that mean fewer programs at our universities, it also means that the universities are making up for that lost funding by raising tuition on students. So I'm going to be a big advocate, a vocal advocate as treasurer for restoring the funding that has been cut to higher education in this state and building on it. It has to be one of our priorities when it comes to our budgeting. This is an economic issue. The only way we're going to get our state's economy back on track is by investing in higher education. The 38 Studios deal was an outrage. It was a tremendous mistake that never should have been made. Anyone with investment experience would tell you that it violated so many of the cardinal rules of investing. That being said, the question we have to ask ourselves now is what is best for the state going forward, and especially what impact will our decisions make on our ability to get the economy going again and bring jobs back to Rhode Island. We have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. We need to look at every problem through the lens of what will bring jobs back to the state and help get the economy back on track. Now, if we default on the 38 Studios obligation, it is very likely that our credit rating will be downgraded significantly. That will make it harder for us to issue bonds that will put Rhode Islanders back to work, fixing our roads, our bridges, our schools. We need to focus on putting Rhode Islanders back to work, restoring our infrastructure. The unemployment rate in the building and construction trades in Rhode Island, by some measures, is around 30%. Meanwhile, we have roads, bridges, and schools that are dangerous, that are falling apart. If we were to default on the 38 Studios obligation, it would make it harder for us to finance these infrastructure projects that would put Rhode Islanders back to work. So as terrible a deal as 38 Studios was, and as much as we have to make sure that we don't make a similar mistake ever again, we have to approach this issue through the lens of what is best for our state's economy going forward.